Mark chapter 8, verses 14 through 26 tonight. Mark chapter 8, verses 14 through 26. We're gonna just go. I'll read it. I'll read through it first, and then after that we'll go back through verse by verse. We'll read through the whole passage first, and then we'll go through it just chunk by chunk after that. Okay, verse 14. This is on page 720 if you've got one of these Bibles. Now they had forgotten to bring bread, and they had only one loaf with them in the boat. And he cautioned them, saying, "Watch out, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod." And they began discussing with one another the fact that they had no bread. And Jesus, aware of this, said to them, "Why are you discussing the fact that you have no bread? Do you not yet perceive or understand? Are your hearts hardened? Having eyes, do you not see? And having ears, do you not hear? And do you not remember? When I broke the 5 loaves for the 5,000, how many baskets full of broken pieces did you take up?" They said to him, 12. "And the 7 for the 4,000, how many baskets full of broken pieces did you take up?" And they said to him, 7. And he said to them, "Do you not yet understand?" And they came to Bethsaida, and some people brought to him a blind man and begged him to touch him. And he took the blind man by the hand and led him out of the village. And when he had spit on his eyes and laid his hands on him, he asked him, "Do you see anything?" And he looked up and said, "I see men, but they look like trees walking." Then Jesus laid his hands on his eyes again, and he opened his eyes. His sight was restored, and he saw everything clearly. And he sent him to his home, saying, "Do not even enter the village." Okay, so now we're up in verse 14. Okay, and last week we talked about Jesus feeding the 4,000. He had the seven loaves of bread. He feeds 4,000 people, and now this has just happened. Okay, and now they get in the boat. All right, and they're going their way, and they realize they only have one loaf of bread. The disciples realize they only have one loaf of bread. Okay, and so this shouldn't be a big deal. Given the previous miracle, given what just happened, it's really ironic that how much bread they have in the boat matters to them. Okay, this is very interesting. That they just experienced this thing that Jesus did. Jesus just he just fed these thousands of people with what would barely feed a normal-sized family, and Jesus does this wonderful thing, and so it's very ironic that they're now concerned about the amount of bread they have in their boat. Verse 15, Jesus sort of addresses this with a word picture, and he cautioned them, saying, "Watch out, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod." Jesus is saying, you're starting to act a lot like the Pharisees. You're starting to act a lot like Herod. You've got these things. You've got this obsession with the material world. You've got this there's a lot of interest in the material world with you, and there's also a little bit of unbelief creeping in here, and then we've also got this self-reliance creeping in. You're starting to act a little bit like a Pharisee. You're starting to think and to talk a little bit like a Pharisee. And so Jesus is warning them using this word picture. He says, well, they're thinking about bread right now. That's the topic of discussion. I'll talk about leaven a little bit, and how and they know that just a little bit of leaven impacts the whole loaf of bread. And Jesus is saying just a little bit of this unbelief, a little bit of this self-reliance that is so common in the Pharisees and Herod and the other people that are sort of working against Jesus. It's springing up in the disciples. It's creeping into their minds and into their hearts, and Jesus is trying to warn them here. But the disciples don't get it. They don't understand. Verse 16, and they began discussing with one another the fact that they had no bread. And so now this is their topic of discussion now. Jesus is trying to use a word picture to try to warn them. He's saying, watch out for this. You're starting to act like the Pharisees. You're starting to act like Herod, and it's obvious, don't get it at all. They're really struggling here. And here they begin to discuss with each other the fact that they have no bread. And so Jesus now, in verses 17 through 21, he's very patient with them. Jesus isn't always patient with the Pharisees and with the hypocrites and with the scribes, the people that kind of go after him with hard hearts. But these men are not hard-hearted. They're just kind of stupid. Okay, there's a difference between being, against Jesus and not understanding him. And these disciples had literally, forsaken their lives to follow Jesus. They were in the boat with Jesus. They were following him everywhere. They were disciples of his. But at the same time, they had some serious issues when it came to their faith and to their understanding and to how they see things. And so Jesus is very patient with them here, and very patiently he works in verses 17 through 21 to try to open up their eyes. And so let's read these verses together. And Jesus, aware of this, in verse 17, said to them, "Why are you discussing the fact that you have no bread? Do you not yet perceive or understand? Are your hearts hardened? Having eyes, do you not see? And having ears, do you not hear? And do you not remember? When I broke the 5 loaves for the 5,000, how many baskets full of broken pieces did you..." He's talking about leftovers. Yeah. I fed 5,000 people, 5,000 men with 5 loaves. What were the leftovers like? There's 12 baskets. They said to him, 12. And the 7 for the 4,000. How many baskets full of broken pieces did you take up? And they said to him, 7. And he said, "Then do you not understand?" Okay, so what we have in this boat, and this has been one of those, I don't know if this is the way God works on my mind sometimes. What he does is he kind of gives me like a picture of what's going on, and it's been one of those reoccurring pictures. So it kind of has not haunted me, but it's kind of just come back into my thinking all week as I've been looking at this passage. And you've got now in this boat, you've got these guys, all right, and these are God's creatures. These guys are God's creation, and they're huddled around this one piece of bread. All right, discussing God's creation, and less than 3 feet away is God himself. And you can see it, can't you see it? They're kind of huddled around, and they've all got they're all talking about the bread, and Jesus is back. Guys, do you not understand? Because we talked last week, we said Jesus does miracles for a whole bunch of different reasons. I mean, he is being compassionate for the people that he's helping in the miracles, but he's also showing what redemption looks like, what the restoration, making all things new looks like, but he's also showing to them that he is God. He is God. He is the creator and the sustainer of life. He brings things into existence. He makes things new. When he heals the leper, all the dead cells and all the rotted flesh, it grows back. I mean, he makes things new. He makes things better. He doesn't just take stuff away, but he makes it better again. He gives life. He's a life giver. And Jesus is here. Don't you understand? I fed thousands of people the last couple of months with food that would barely feed your family. Yeah. Why are your hearts so hard? You have ears and you have eyes. Do you not understand? And they're over there huddled around the bread. Oh, well, what are we going to do? How are we going to, let's divide this up into 12. What are we going to